Good evening, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the Eternal Heart Conclave. And today we are discussing about heart failure. So just now you have heard about the drug therapy in heart failure. Now I want to discuss about device therapy for heart failure. And as the topic given was what is new in 2020, but I have kept it very basic because our target audience is our physician colleagues. And in this part of the world, these devices are still very much underused. So I'm not talking anything advanced about them, but just the basics of these devices and how these devices work to improve the outcome in the heart failure. Uh, So heart failure prevalence is rising throughout the world. The reason for this may be the aging population in both kind of industrialized and developing nations, obesity, diabetes, hypertension. Improved survival is a major reason for the increase in prevalence of heart failure because those patients who used to die because of myocardial infarction, now they survive because of the on-time treatment and later they developed LV dysfunction and heart failure. But fortunately, there are many therapies which have emerged during the past few decades which can greatly improve the outcomes in heart failure patient. So before any discussion about the heart failure, it is always good to revise these stages. And I find the most usefulness of these stages while we are, deciding to what kind of treatment he needs and how early a treatment should be started. For example, stage A is those people who are on high risk of developing symptoms, but they of heart failure, but they have no symptoms at all and no structural heart disease, only the risk factors. So if we intervene at this level, then heart failure will not develop. And stage B is when structural heart disease is already there, but there are no symptoms. Stage C is when the patient develops symptoms. And stage 4 is when these symptoms are uncontrollable, refractory heart failure, and we go for advanced therapies like continuous inotropes or VAD or heart transplantation and various things. So it is the stage B and C where most of these drugs and devices are used. But in stage A, risk stratification, risk modification should be applied very strongly in all cases so that the prevalence of heart failure can be brought down. So if we talk about devices, we'll talk briefly about implantable defibrillator, CRTP, which is a cardiac resynchronization pacemaker, and cardiac resynchronization therapy with defibrillator, that is called CRTD, or commonly called a combo device. Then temporary support devices, permanent support devices. By support devices hereby we would mean the left ventricular assist devices, whether they are temporary or they are permanent as destination therapy. So preventing sudden cardiac death in heart failure. The large population of heart failure dies because of sudden cardiac arrest. And sudden cardiac death rates in CHF patient with LV dysfunction is like 50% of total deaths. So if 100 deaths happen, the total mortality is 15 to 40%, and half of them would die because of sudden cardiac death, and half of them would die because of pump failure. So as the stage of heart failure and the functional class advances towards NYHA4, there are more pump failure deaths, but in initial part of natural history of heart failure, there are more cardiac arrests. So these are the asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic heart failure patient are those where we have to take care of sudden cardiac arrest because otherwise their survival is good if we can give them the protection from sudden cardiac arrest. So this is an ICD and where you can see below the clavicle on left side there is a pulse generator of ICD, then there is a lead. So this is a single chamber lead and which has two coils. One is seen in the spiral vena cava and one is seen in the right ventricle. And so this leads act as a pacing and sensing lead, acts as a pacemaker, and also acts like a shock delivery system. So this is how ICD works. So it constantly monitors the patient's heart rate, detects episodes of VT and VF, It provides defibrillation or cardioversion, a shock, or anti-tachycardia pacing to terminate VT and VF. It provides backup pacing for bradycardia and provides a record of the patient's arrhythmic episode for better patient management. So patient gets treatment on time, and then when he comes to our office, we interrogate and we can tell him that what date, what kind of arrhythmia happened, and what kind of treatment was delivered. So ICT has evolved a long way. Way back in 2000, in 1999, India first ICD was implanted at Alina Institute and Scott Heart Institute, Delhi. In 2003, I joined that team. Ever since 2003, we are implanting, and thousands of ICD we have implanted. So it started with a huge device, and then the size became smaller, it became more intelligent. It started doing anti-tachycardia pacing without delivering shock. And then evidence also grew up. First, the secondary prevention, we'll discuss briefly, then primary prevention, how it works in preventing the sudden cardiac arrest in those patients who have never suffered a cardiac arrest before. So these are the latest guidelines which say that an ICD is recommended in a patient with ventricular arrhythmia causing hemodynamic instability. So any patient who has a hemodynamic unstable VT and who got the shock to recover, he is a candidate for the ICD, which is a secondary prevention. And any patient who has undergone who has suffered an MI or non-ischemic cardiomyopathy, where EF is less than 35%, and then he needs an ICD, that is class 1 primary prevention. And the only the condition here is that the life expectancy of these patients should be more than 1 year. So that is for any kind of intervention. If we think that patient can survive for more than 1 year, then we implant ICD or CRT, otherwise we won't do. So basically, any MI patients who has left with LV function less than 35% after 40 days of MI, and if he has been revascularized, like stenting has been done, then after 90 days of MI, an ICD should be considered for primary prevention. And those who have suffered a syncope, those who have suffered a cardiac arrest, those who have suffered a VT episode, though they need ICD as class 1 indication for secondary prevention. So we'll discuss an example. 50-year male patient, post-myocardial infarction, angioplasty 3 years back, doing well, moderate LV. Actually, severe is wrongly written, beg your pardon for that. Severe LV dysfunction, 25%, had sudden loss of consciousness, revived by CPR. And the cardiologist did a check angiography, but the CAD was non-critical. He underwent an ICD implantation. 55-year-old male underwent PTCA2 LAD 3 months before. EF is 30%, no episode of syncope, no episode of cardiac arrest, but ECG shows multiple PVC. So ICD implanted. So in this case, even if PVCs were not there, after 3 months of a PTCA, he becomes a candidate for primary prevention ICD. But since he is showing multiple PVCs, the risk increases. More the risk factor you see, like wider QRS, PVCs, non-sustained VTs, history of syncope. These are the things which make us think that patient has more risk of sudden cardiac arrest, and these should be considered ICD more strongly. Not everyone can be given IC due to financial reasons, economic reasons, but high risk patient with these factors should be given an ICD. So this is how it looks like while implanted. This is an example of single chamber ICD where there is single coil RV coil lead have been implanted. So next comes the cardiac resynchronization therapy, or the CRT. Um, so sudden cardiac death in heart failure increases with QRS duration. Wider is the QRS, wider, more are the chances of heart failure. And this is how CRT works. There are 3 leads, one in RA, one in RV, and one in the LV vein through coronary sinus. So this is basically an epicardial approach where the lead goes to coronary sinus and one of the LV veins. So this is how we can synchronize the LV and RV by giving them the voltage at the same time or giving them in a sequential way in such a way that circulation is more synchronized. So the indication of the class 1 indication is CRT in patients with LVF 30 less than 35%, sinus rhythm, left bundle branch block with QRS more than 150. So that is class 1 if more than 150, and it can be useful for patient who have less than 35% and non-LVVB with QRS more than 150. That is the class 2A indication. So class 1 indication in those with left bundle branch block and QRS more than 150. So this is an example. 50 years old male patient, breathlessness on exertion since 6 months, NYHA class 3 on optimal medical therapy, still symptomatic. Then what should we do? EF 30%. So implanted a CRT-D. So CRT-D has a 3 leads. One, the big, large, longest one is in the left ventricle through coronary sinus, and the one that buckled up is on the right atrium, and the thicker lead is in the right ventricle, which is implanted on the interventricular septum. So in 6 months follow-up, ejection fraction improved to 45% and patient become asymptomatic. So this is a kind of responder. So those patients who improve on CRT are called responder, and those who do not improve, they are called non-responder. In non-LVVB patient also, if there is sinus rhythm, if patient is very symptomatic, if wide QRS is there more than 150, optimized medical therapy has been given, then it can be attempted, it can be tried. Particularly those who have an indication for ICD, and if they have wide QRS, even if non-LVVB, the CRT-D may be beneficial and should be advised. So next come the ventricular assist devices. The classification can be on the basis of period, temporary LVADs, permanent LVADs, on the basis of impaired which ventricle they act, left ventricular assist device, right ventricular assist device, and BiVADs, biventricular assist devices. On the basis of pumping mechanism, it could be pulsatile or non-pulsatile like centrifugal pumps. So these are temporary devices. The tandem heart, Impella, and Relton catheter. Most commonly used is IABP, which we use every now and then with PTCA. And Impella is also now used at our center, which can be used up to 5 days, and it provides cardiac output up to 2.5 liter per minute. So this is how IABP is used, and this is how tandem heart. This is the Impella systems brief summary, and we are using it also with the protection while doing a high risk PCI. These devices are also useful. So permanent VADs, first generation, bigger devices, pulsatile, had to be implanted in abdomen, and the next generation was smaller one. Third generation is a centrifugal pump, very small device, can be implanted in thorax, and there is no extension to the abdomen. So the VADs have been advanced in last few years. And indication for VAD is either as a bridge to transplant, where patient is awaiting the heart. So so they can be used as a bridge, and destination therapy, where patient is given a third generation device or a second generation device as a destination therapy, and then transplant won't be done. Bridge to recovery in any temporary heart failure like myocarditis, where we think that it will recover, then the short acting LVADs can also be used. And bridge to candidacy, suppose today one person is not the candidate of heart transplant because of renal failure, and if we give LVAD and it becomes the kidney improves, then it becomes a transplant candidate. So mechanical circulate, so this is same describing that. So thank you very much. I think I could justify a very vast topic of device therapy in heart failure in the given time of 15 minutes, and I hope we can be benefited more by discussion. Thank you very much.